Greetings, friends! I'm Titan. I'm an experienced Hearthstone player who's been playing Hearthstone for a long time, and I reach Legend pretty much every month, usually before the day 10 of the season. Though I do consider myself a beginner on the other hand, because that perspective kinda allows me to achieve better results. First of all, I would like to thank you for a great Angora expansion and a good choice of rotating some cards into the Hall of Fame. And I wanted to talk about the Auctioneer and Jade Idol. Those two cards kinda inhibit a lot of deck building, especially in the slower decks. While Jade Druid remains still, I'm not gonna say strong, but it's still it kinda performs well against the aggro and mid-range archetypes, while it completely obliterates control. The value generated and tempo achieved through those cards is quite big, and it overwhelms. Even though if you take them to fatigue, they just can't fatigue out and keep creating more and more and more threats in the same way all the time. Jade Druid is quite represented at all ranks right now, and it's definitely not an enjoyable experience. And not saying about the emotion of anger when you lose to something and stuff like that, it just doesn't have much counterplay. I'm not saying that we are supposed to have counterplay for every opponent's turn and everything, of course. It all depends on the RNG of the draws, the RNG of the game, the skill of the player, whether a mistake was made or not. It all just constitutes the magic of Hearthstone, isn't it? Though, knowing that the game will extend a bit more and watching the Auctioneer draw their whole deck, and knowing that you will definitely lose that game by watching all of those draws and stuff over and over and over and over and over again for a long period of time, kind of creates some feeling of staleness, right? I'm not sure how the new Death Knight expansion will look like, but I'm definitely hyped about it. I, Imagine if we get a crab, another crab as a tag that destroys a Jade and acquire its stats. Adds some of its stats to its attack and health points, or imagine if he had. Imagine if the crabs take over the Hearthstone in 2 years. That would be kinda interesting, right? Yeah, definitely. On the other hand, imagine a warrior card for the players who like slower games, and you have a counter to some decks that have just too much draw, and they quite rely on it, and they just have too much draw at their disposal. And watching them draw their whole deck, you want to stop it. And you have this legendary that allows both players to draw only one card per turn. That would be kind of a new, unique way to counter them. Not sure how it would turn out, but it definitely seems interesting as an idea. I'm definitely not telling you how to do your expansion card and stuff. I respect your choices. If the Jade Idol still becomes quite Jade Druid in general, still remains quite represented on the ladder, and is still problematic for the other control decks, I want to invite you to consider changing one of those two cards. And I want to raise a question: is Jade Idol really a card that we want to see in competitive and top tier Druid decks? Thank you for listening, and much love, Titan.